I wasn't all that bothered about school. I suppose I could have done all right, but instead, when it came to the different subjects, I just ended up feeling lost for words in English, at 6s and 7s in maths, didn't feel like science needed much in the way of investigation, couldn't see any future in history, had no idea where I was in geography, wasn't au fait with French, couldn't get the picture in art and didn't know what to make of woodwork or metalwork. I wasn't in any of the top classes, but then I wasn't in any of the bottom ones either. I was somewhere in between. There was only one other kid who was in all the same classes as me. His name was Hugh, and I felt like I was stuck in the middle with him. When I say stuck, that was due to the fact that even though we became good mates, Hugh had what you might call a hygiene problem, and he used to smell a bit. I did tell Mam about it, and she said I could either put up with it or tell him and risk losing the friendship. Either way, a stalemate. Hugh was a great laugh though. He liked nothing more than having a lot off to the teachers or getting me into trouble for laughing along with him. So I put up with the smell 'cause he was good company. He was a straight shooter, which from a teacher's point of view probably made him bad company. Like this one time in music, which you'd have thought I'd have been into, and I would have been, but they only did all that classical stuff, so I wasn't. The teacher was telling us all about Beethoven, and he thought I was laughing at the fact that Beethoven was deaf, when what had happened was Hugh had said under his breath, if he'd had to sit through one of your lessons, he'd have thought it was a blessing. So rather than blame Hugh, I got a detention and was told that in order to appreciate just how lucky I was to have me hearing, I'd have to listen to John Cage's 4 minutes 33 for an entire hour. But I just ended up sitting there in total quiet. I don't know about improving my hearing, but nowadays I reckon John Cage would be guilty of what I think they call passive-aggressive behaviour. You know, giving someone the silent treatment. Like I say, I was an average student when it came to most of the lessons at school, but the one thing I really didn't like was PE, which I used to avoid as much as possible. I used to try and forge Mam's handwriting and say something like I had a bad leg, but the PE teacher would always see right through it and say stuff like, "Get out on that field, or I'll make sure you never walk again. You've always got some lame excuse." Either way, I'd end up getting the big trainer for attempting to bunk off. Sometimes the PE teacher would threaten to leave his foot in it. I mean, he didn't, but to this day, I only have to hear the words Dunlop Green Flash, and I break out in welts on the back of me legs. Not so much green flash, more like red rash. I remember this one time when I tried to pull a fake sickie. The PE teacher turned around and said, "Are you the cock of the school?" I said, "I don't know what you mean, sir. I've never been in a fight in my life. Besides, I've got 3 older brothers. I tend to get left alone." And he said, "I didn't mean it like that." I thought that was quite funny for a PE teacher. Then I heard him say exactly the same thing to Hugh. "Are you the cock of the school?" And Hugh, rather than answer, ended up calling him a dick. So the PE teacher said, "I'll give you dick." So Hugh said back to him, "If it's all the same to you, sir, I'll just have the big trainer. At least that way we can consign the punishment to the exterior of my person." The PE teacher might have thought himself a bit of a player, but he wasn't a match for Hugh. And then what would happen, if you deliberately forgot your bag, is he'd have to get some horrible old kit out the big box he kept in his office and go out on that field looking like that kid in the film about the kestrel. Hugh would put some kit on out of the box and would instantly smell better. You'd never see that on a deodorant advert, would you? Kestrel, 'cause there's nothing like the smell of lost property shorts. you had no choice to put the kit on really, 'cause if you didn't, you could end up playing murder ball in your underpants. I thought it was called that 'cause of where the PE teacher used to aim at when taking his turn. I suppose it could have been worse. It could have been rollerball. The last thing you need is a metal object or a spiked glove heading in that direction. Although in later life, I found out that some people have a lot of time for that sort of carry-on. The only lesson I did try and make an effort in was RE, mostly 'cause I was keen to find out what being a Buddhist was like, 'cause my real dad, who had given me my middle name Arthur, had gone off to find out how to become one. But the teacher reckoned that any religion other than the Christian one was the wrong one, and that the only way to find God was through Jesus. Hugh said something about God's house having lots of rooms in it, but the teacher said the other rooms were full of suffering, and so we sat in his room and did exactly that. If I couldn't find out about Buddhism at school, I thought I could try and do as much at home, and started getting into Kung Fu. But when I told Mam why, she said I'd be better off if I tried not to think about me real dad, and by getting into Kung Fu, I was just pandering. It was hard, 'cause a lot of the other kids in our street were into Kung Fu as well. One even made a pair of nunchucks out of his mam's yard brush, which was great, until his mam, who was a right dragon, found out about it, and ended up using them to give him a beating. He must have done a good job on 'em, 'cause when she was using 'em, he was making all the same noises that the characters did in the Kung Fu films we all used to watch, right down to it sounding like the noises had been put on afterwards. I think that was the last time I saw him, 'cause not long after he moved away. To be honest, I didn't really like him. Always wandering around with his shirt off, offering to knock people out and trying to make a splash. If the truth be told, he was a bit of a brute. Last I heard, he'd gone to Henry Cooper. My obsession with Kung Fu didn't last that long. I remember our Les telling me that if I wanted to learn more about Buddhism, I'd be better off getting myself an old motorbike and learn how to keep it on the road. But I didn't have the gumption for that. Besides, when was the last time you saw the Dalai Lama tearing around on two wheels? You won't, 'cause Buddhist monks are not meant to have anything to do with motorbikes, are they? If anything, they're born to be mild.